So welcome back, Miriam and Jerry, after the holidays. I hope you had a good Hanukkah and a good time off. We missed a couple of parashot. One was the Miketz, and one was Vayigash. And in Miketz, we heard about Pharaoh's dreams. And finally, the butler remembered Joseph, who had been in prison, who had interpreted the dreams, and he brought him out. He told Pharaoh about it, and Joseph finally acknowledged that that God gave him the interpretation and that God gave him the dreams. Because before, when he told his dreams to his brothers when he was young, he was very, very spoiled, and he was a little arrogant, and you don't hear any mention of God. But after going through all my trials, Lord, all his trials and tribulations, let me tell you, he acknowledged, he knew who his God was. And I think that's one of the lessons that we can learn. The main lesson about the Torah is learning how to trust that God is there and God is with us. So when he went through all those things, he learned that his God was really with him. And then we heard about how Pharaoh brought him up from being a slave to second in command. And then the next few chapters was about him and his brothers, how they came. Jacob had sent him because there was a famine, as he had prophesied in the dreams. There was a famine in the land, which was going to last for 7 years. And after 2 years, Jacob sent his sons to Joseph, but they didn't recognize him, although Joseph recognized them. And he put them through a whole what should I say?
Trial.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you, he put them through a lot, putting the money back in their sacks, and then when they found it, they were afraid. They were afraid to go back. Anyway, finally they went back, and you see how at one point when he realized that his brothers were sorry. They knew that everything they were going through was because of what they put their brother through. And Joseph heard, even though they didn't know, because he was talking through interpreters. So now he finally sent everybody away, and he said, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. He finally revealed himself to him, and the idea was he had revealed himself in an intimate way. Maybe he showed his circumcision, who knows what he did, but he really revealed to his brothers, and they couldn't believe it. And then he sent for his father. And in this portion that we're coming up here, Vayechi, we're going to see Jacob comes down to Egypt, and it's a story called in Vayechi. So let's take a look at it.
We have a question on this.
Yes,
Peggy?
go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, it's very significant what you said, about who gave the dreams. It shows quite maturation in character.
Right.
And also, when he was young, and he went out to show his coat to his brothers, he was also young, and later on he did mature. About 20 years later he matured, 17 to 37. And the thing was, what do you surmise of the character that he put his brothers through a trial? But on the other hand, he was very forgiving. Don't forget, 1 or 2 people of his brothers had suggested that they kill him even. So he had to be quite forgiving. I mean, 1 or 2 saved him, or maybe more, but maybe 1 or 2, or it was suggested that they even kill him. So he had to be quite forgiving for that. And so he checked them. So he was very astute character. The other thing was, I'd like to know why it was necessary, or what reasons he would say, I'm Joseph, the one you sold to Egypt. Why did he have to say there's more to it than I made more to it that the one you sold to Egypt? Because after all, if they know that he's Joseph, they know what they did. So there was a reason for repeating, for repeating, that, beside the obvious reason as to be to clarify, to make sure there's no misunderstanding. There could be other reasons that people, when they make judgments, they say that they're taking all circumstances into consideration. That's another, So anyhow, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that.
I personally believe he was gonna stick it to them a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I agree.
You know what you did to me? I'll remind you what you did to me. Even though I've forgiven you, I haven't forgotten. It's easy to say we forgive somebody, because I've been through that. And even most recently, where I thought I had forgiven somebody, but some things came up in a conversation, and I reminded that person some of the things that they had done to me, and that really I wanted to hear. I wanted some completion in my life, and I wanted, even though I had forgiven them and I understand why they did it, and I wasn't harboring ill feeling, but I also know that when we acknowledge what we do, there's something in that process of acknowledgement that is very healing. And especially when, we're willing to say it out loud. But when I drew that to this person's attention, they took it all wrong, and they were very upset with me. So it created a whole balagan. But I believe that it's really important, the whole idea of the offerings. When the offerings were not about, when they brought the animals to the Mishkan. We haven't gotten anywhere close to that yet, because we're only still in Genesis. We're finishing Genesis. But later on, you'll see when they would bring an offering, that offering was acknowledgement that they had done something, and they needed to go before God, to the intermediary at the time, who was the Kohen, and bring the best of their offerings, the best of their gifts, and then they would watch that animal that they loved and be offered, be killed. That's not an easy thing. It shows us that when we acknowledge there's a price to pay for the things that we do, and every one of them, and I think Joseph allowed them to sweat a little bit, and that, to me, what do you think, Miriam?
I agree. I think they were sticking it to him. It's just like.
You mean he was sticking it to them?
Yeah, to them. I think sometimes also people need to know what they've done too, even for their sakes. Sometimes it's easy to let a person off the hook, but I know they knew what they had done, but to know that he knew, and he still remembered very clearly. So I think it's two things. It's like, you need to know what you've done, and gives them an opportunity to really think about it and ask forgiveness or whatever. But yeah, I definitely think he was sticking it to them in a way.
But yeah. I guess at that point, because he already heard, I could tell somebody something that they did to me, but unless I know that their heart is really open to hearing it, and that they're truly repentant, they've acknowledged it, and they can't take it anymore. They need forgiveness. They need to let it go. That's very different than telling somebody who's not open at all. I think he knew that his brothers were open.
He must have known. He saw the whole thing of Judah saying, "I'll stay," instead of. Remember, like that whole. He saw a whole family that I think had changed. So he must have seen that.
Yeah.
You know, it's true. If they're not receptive, there's no point.
Yeah. But he had
I
heard his
mean-
brothers. He had heard them already saying amongst themselves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Do you agree with that, Chair?
Well, it's quite it's quite an involved. We don't know what was on his mind. Maybe he wasn't too clear himself. But in relation to it, there's this here poem by Rudyard Kipling, 1865, 1936.
Yes.
If oh,
If
you know the poem.
I love that poem.
Oh, you do. So, because I've been reciting poems, as you know, right? I can't sing like you, so I recite. Try to recite.
I used to keep it on my fridge. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you and make allowance for their doubting too. I love that poem. Go ahead, read it, Jerry. It's beautiful.
No, you want me to read it? No, it's,
yes, it's beautiful. Go ahead, read it.
I wasn't practiced reading it. I was going to. Okay, I'm going to read the. I wasn't planning to read it, but I will since you.
Yeah, just read it. It's gorgeous.
Well, I'm not going to read the third verse. I skipped that. Okay, I wasn't planning to read it, but anyhow, I was going to make a point on it. Okay, I'll read it. So for people who may want to know, but you can take over if you read. Anyhow, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowances for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired of waiting, and yet don't look too good, nor talk too wise, if you can dream and not make dreams your master, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken. And stoop and build them out with worn out tools. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings, nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you, but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. So
That's beautiful. Really beautiful.
We had to memorize that in high school. I remember it. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I left out the third paragraph because the reason I brought that up, Peggy, was not to read it, but thank you. The reason I brought it up is if you can do all those things, you're some type of an angel.
Yeah, well, those are the things that we aspire to, but that's our struggle. Our struggle on this earth, you know, Israel, Jacob's name was changed to Israel, which means the man who struggles. We will always struggle in our lives. Once we have a sense that God is with us and our eyes have been opened and our consciences have been opened and seared, you know, our hearts have been pierced, as they say in the Tanakh. You know, our eyes can see and our ears can hear. That's when we realize, that's when we start to struggle. Because if we have no conscience, it doesn't matter. You can do anything. But once you walk with God.
Well, this was the reason I brought this poem up at this time was because Joseph was doing some of those things. Yes. Don't forget, these guys wanted to kill him, some of them. Right. They sold him into slavery. It's like, for some people, it's like a living death. He was in the dungeon for years. And, you know, it reminds me of that guy, Nelson Mandela, in South Africa. He was in jail for 30, 40 years, wow. Whatever. He came out and he ran the country. He kept the football field, the football team.
And he was so humble. He was such a humble man.
That's right. So that's the key. humility, humble, humility, and extremely forgiving.
Yes. Yeah.
And being quiet. There's an expression that if someone insults you in your family, you should be quiet, because if you open your mouth, you're going to get more insults.
Exactly.
So that's why I brought that in at this time.
That's one of the things that our rabbi used to tell us. You don't need to defend yourself. And that's the thing that I have to learn how not to do, because it's the first thing that you want to do when someone asks you a question in a more belligerent way. You immediately want to defend yourself, but instead of defending yourself, you really need to be still. And it's funny because the other night I was like really agitated with a few things, and I was going over in my mind what they were, and then I kept saying to myself, okay, be still and know that I'm God. That's one of the things that he tells us. And then even that wasn't working. And I finally said to myself, shh, I had to shush my brain.
If you defend yourself, you increase the evil spirit in the other person, and it goes on and on. It just gets worse.
Yes.
So all this your part. This is something you have to learn. I think you have to be very, very big to let that evil spirit dissipate from the person. It's something like an insanity got hold of the other person.
It reminds me of King Saul, when he would call David to him, because it's like this evil part of himself, that evil spirit took over. And the only thing that could calm him was David singing, God's word, which was beautiful. And that reminds me, that poem reminded me of something that King Solomon wrote in Proverbs. We sang this song, Miriam, you will remember it. Trust, trust,
Right.
trust, trust. Trust in the Lord, hallelujah. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Do not be wise in your own eyes. Fear God and turn from evil. This way will bring health to your body and nourishment to your bones. Trust, trust. The whole thing is all these lessons, all these stories in the Torah are so that we can see the frailty, the humanness, of the human state. The frailness, the fragility, that we're always failing. But no matter what, when God is with us, he lets us come to him. He gives us an opportunity to start again. And that's the beauty of the Torah, is little by little we learn to trust him. And I say, well, you know what? He was with us all these years. He's been with us since he formed us as a nation 4,000 years ago. He never let us down. He was with us through Egypt. He was with us through all our dispersions. And why wouldn't he be with us now? So
that's extreme human love and understanding the other another human being's nature. It's extreme. Excuse me. You're in the middle of saying something, Peggy. Please continue.
No, it's okay. That's fine. What were you going to say, Miriam?
Yeah, just quickly. What I experienced, I told you about it, Peggy, a couple of weeks ago, that God is the God of beginning again and forgiveness. All these things don't mean, okay, I've had trouble forgiving myself for certain things in my life. So, and I've known intellectually and sometimes experientially, but mostly intellectually, that God forgives us. We approach God, he forgives us. But to really experience that, it never quite took away my self-condemnation, especially for certain things I've done. And a couple of weeks ago, it's like I had like a click of something that in me. It might sound obvious, but I experienced it, whereas before I knew it more in words than in experience. And the idea is that what I did, I know was wrong. I totally know it was wrong of me. But forgiving has nothing to do with that. Like, I could look at it and see it was wrong, but I don't have to like a pickle and juice. I don't have to stay in that pickling juice. And really what I was doing was not allowing myself to start again, really, even if I would say it, but yeah, you can start your life. But really, I kept on dwelling on this fact that how I'm a terrible person. How could I really, how, when people say, oh, Miriam's a good person, I would always say, well, little do they know, and then I experienced this feeling, the sense that forgiveness doesn't mean what you did was right or wrong. That's not the freedom. The freedom is that now the process has been completed and you can be forgiven. It doesn't mean that what you did is wrong. It's not like, oh, now I'm a clean slate.
No, that what you did isn't wrong.
Oh, it doesn't mean that what I did isn't wrong. It is wrong, but it's not something you could move on. God is the God of beginning again. Doesn't mean isn't it chalkboard that, in my opinion, the chalkboard doesn't erase the sin. And now for the first time, I think that's what it means, that God covers us. I don't know if that's what it means.
That's what it means. God is saying, I have it covered. This whole idea.
But I never understood. I said, covering, it sounds good, but what does that mean? What does it mean? It means, yes, what I did was wrong, but I no longer have to continue in that state. I could move on and accept that God is, I'm willing to start again.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, for me, that's a big step. It doesn't mean, now I could live my life and if people say, oh, Miriam's a good person, whether it's true or not, I'm not going to pound myself the same way I've been doing.
Well, that's what Joseph's brothers saw, that even though Joseph told them they were forgiven, they didn't feel it. They didn't get it. And even when their father Jacob, like in this portion, this parasha, Jacob dies. And then the brothers get really scared because they figured, oh, as long as he's alive, he'll cover for us. But when he died, they went to him and they made up the story. Well, Jacob, our father, said, he told us that you should forgive us. And Joseph said, what you meant for wrong, for evil, God used for good so that I could save you and all of the world at that time that suffered with 7 years of famine. Joseph was put in that position. God knew, and we have to. The self-forgiveness is such a long process. It comes in stages. It's like I remember Rabbi would always tell us about when we walk with God, we're walking like an upward spiral. It seems like we're coming back to the same situation over again, but we're higher. It's like we're going back one step, but we're always going forward too. So we never go further back. But that self-forgiveness is vital. It's absolutely vital for our sense of peace. The Torah is there with these stories to give us peace. If we have peace in our lives, it's because we're trusting him. I mean, look at the story of King David. King David was beloved of God. God loved David. He was his best friend. And yet David, as a king, forced adultery upon Bathsheba when he saw her. She was married to one of his best generals. He had his general killed. But when he was confronted with what he did, when Nathan the prophet confronted him, he didn't say, I didn't do this. It's not me. Somebody else made me do it. He acknowledged. That's key. Acknowledge. And then do your best to make things right. He married Bathsheba, which made it right. The baby died. He knew what he did would cause that. This was the price, the death of his baby. But then 7 days he mourned, sat Shiva, After the 7 days, he said, okay, I'm forgiven. It's over. Let's get on with living. And then he had the next child, King Solomon, who became the greatest king that Israel ever had. Imagine the forgiveness of God just by our going to him. That's what the beauty of these stories are for us. It's not about that. I really believe that's the difference between what we call, there's two different types of Judaism. There's rabbinic Judaism and there's biblical Judaism. We practice what's called biblical Judaism. We look to the Bible, to the Torah, to the Tanakh for our guidance. We're not running to the rabbis, even though rabbis have a very, wonderful opinions about what's happening in the Torah, but we have to be careful always to read it, which is why I love week to week to read it. This week, we're not going to read it, but we're talking about it, which is it's also excellent. I've been reading the Torah now for 32 years. Miriam, you've been reading it for just about as long, and so the more we read it, the more real it becomes in our lives. But it's not only reading, it's not only believing, it's living it. And living it is the hard part. It's like we say, God gave us the 10 commandments. They're simple, but they're not easy to do. It takes everything that we have in us to constantly live it. And every single day we fail. Every day. There's not one of us who are perfect. But we have to keep going.
And yet, I know what you're saying, and you're right, it's hard. But without a wonderful creator who watches over all humanity's lives, without that truth, I can't imagine. Life is it makes life. It's a beautiful, incredible, beyond words experience. Sometimes I've just come out of a terrible time, but without the reality of a creator, hard or not hard, I can't imagine going back to some of the attitudes and ways I lived my life.
Well, if I look at what you went through, and I went through it with you for it was a year and a half, I think your process, if not longer, everything before just all of a sudden came out. If you didn't have God in your life, I mean, there's a difference that knowing that there's a God and believing that he exists, but really knowing that he's got things covered for you, knowing that he's going to help you through. You might have ended up in a psychiatric ward. Who knows what you would have been going through? So there's such value in having a relationship. That idea of having an intimate relationship is not the same as converting to a religion and following a bunch of rules and regulations and saying, okay, at Pesach, I have 2 sets of dishes and everything's clean. I clean the oven, I clean the fridge, and I eat matzah, and I have all these foods that I know I can't eat. But the Torah just says, don't eat matzah, don't eat yeast. I mean, not don't eat matzah, don't eat yeast, period. That's the only thing it says. And then, but rabbinic Judaism has made all these other rules and regulations that could make one meshigeh. So crazy that you almost get, I can't take it anymore. And a lot of people walk away from a relationship with the Creator because the religion becomes too much of a burden. God doesn't want to burden us. It's the opposite. He wants us to be free. Our Yeshua, I believe, in that this Rabbi Yeshua, who lived at the time of the Romans, was very different than the concocted Jesus Christ of Christianity. And I'll say that, I'm not afraid to say it, but it's 2 different people. The Jesus Christ of Christianity is a made-up God. The Rabbi Yeshua, who walked with his people, who wanted us to come back to Torah, was very real. He was trying to do exactly that. And he said, you shall know the truth, emet, was a way of saying you will know God. Emet in Hebrew is Aleph, Mem, Tav. Did you ever hear this, Jerry? The Aleph. The Aleph.
I just have to plug in my thing 1 second, but I just have to plug it in. It's got a little bit. The battery's going down. I'm going to plug it. It's going to take me a second.
Okay.
Well. Okay, go ahead. Keep talking, but
The Torah and the Tanakh are all written in Hebrew, and the letters of the Torah and Tanakh all point to truth. Emet. Aleph is the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Mem is the middle letter, and Tav is the last letter. So from the first to the last, we know that we're walking in truth. And Yeshua said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. God wants us liberated. He set us free from Egypt. The first commandment says, I set you free from Egypt. I set you out of slavery. I'm the only God. That's it. Don't have any other gods. So this is our process of walking with God, is taking a look at all the things that keep us in bondage, that keep us, like Miriam and I, we love to walk. Every day we walk maybe an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes even 3 hours. I have my trusty stick. It looks like the staff of Moses, and everybody, I'm telling you, you can't imagine how many people comment or stop to talk to us because of my stick. They call me Moshe.
What does it have on the bottom?
It has a rubber stopper, and it has a compass at the top. It's really big. It's like really a rod, like a staff.
Like a staff, eh?
Yeah, it's like a staff.
Curve on the top.
It's got a curve, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe you should.
You want to see it? Let me show it to you.
Sure.
She should use it to separate the St. Lawrence River, like Moses.
Stand back a little bit because of how big it is. You can see?
Wow, let's see the top.
The top has a compass.
Oh, wow.
And it's got a string. It's got a picture of an eagle right here.
Where'd you find that?
It's carved in, and it's, the bottom is made of rubber.
Right.
It's the eagle itself. I mean, I love the bird, the eagle. And one of the things that I remember hearing a story about when the mother eagle wants the babies to learn how to fly, when they know that they're developing their wings, they'll take them and they'll allow them to drop, to fall until they strengthen their wings, and then they'll swoop in underneath and grab them so that they don't fall. But that's the way that they're taught. And God allows us to fall. He allows us to go through the hard times, and he'll always be there to lift us up and take us under his wings. That's how he covers us. Like it says, like a hen covers her chicks in a storm. We will feel that safety that in under the wings of our Creator.
Remember, there's a lot of mention of eagles. It's true, like the symbol of. But what's this about their beak breaking? Remember, there's something about their beak breaks and then it's regenerated, just like a real eagle. And somebody in our group.
I think when it's about to die, when they're older, but right now I can't remember. There's a lot of imagery.
Really amazing.
A lot of imagery.
Because God knows when those words are used, he knows what the animal is all about,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This summer I was walking with a stick that I found up in the country a couple of years ago. It's about the same height, like my hair is straight, just like that. The only thing is with the ice, with the ice, Peggy, they have sticks that will actually stick into the would stick into the snow and ice, little.
Yeah, but I don't like to walk on the ice. I'm not a big walker on ice.
I was
Um,
telling Jerry that we can go down to the St. Lawrence and you could have it divide with your
He did. That's funny. Yeah, Miriam and I went to the lake shore, and I think it was last summer, and I fell. My foot accidentally went into there was some like a little bridge, and there were some wood planks, and there was a hole that I didn't even see. My foot went into, before I knew it, I was on the floor. It was so fast. It was so shocking. And I hit my head, and that knocked some sense into me. So then the next thing I realized that and that's ever since then I've been walking with this stick, and it makes me feel more secure. I really enjoy it. So.
But that's nice that you guys are walking every day, 1 to
Yeah.
3 hours. That's fantastic,
Yeah, I downloaded a pedometer on my phone, and they say we should walk about 10,000 steps a day. So we've done that, but 10,000 steps is like about 2 hours of walking. But we've done that. Where I live, I can walk from here all the way to Monkland. We can walk down to Sherbrooke. We can walk to Carey Square. We've walked all over, like I'm in the central hub where I live. So it's great.
What do you do when it's really cold out?
We dress really warm.
Like a couple of weeks ago, at the end of December, it was pretty cold out.
Yeah. Well, it depends. Some days I don't go out. It depends on how busy I am. But this week was wonderful. We walked every day. But I bought some really very warm clothes. And there's you get to meet people and talk to people and see the beauty of nature. And we tend to be so today the world is living in such isolation and fear. Fear is something that is being spread. It's almost like divide and conquer. But when you go outside and you meet a lot of people, or one at a time, and we're always stopping and talking to people with dogs. We're getting to know dogs of all kinds now.
I love dogs.
And they're like, yeah, we love these dogs. Miriam especially, she bends down and they look her right in the eye. She got her nose to nose. It's really cute. And it's just an absolute wonderful world. I was thinking of that song actually tonight. If you don't mind, I don't know if you remember the song that Louis Armstrong did.
I love that song.
Me too. And this reminds me of our walks. It's just so beautiful.
But by the way, that Louis Armstrong wore a Magen David.
He was adopted by a Jewish family.
Yeah.
Well, I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred nights, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of a rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of a rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than you and I will ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Oh yeah, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. What a great song. Thank
That
you.
beautiful song.
And it is, you know, if we just sat in our house and all we did was watch the news and watch what's on television and not go out and meet people. And it's funny because I'm always, when I go out, I'm always smiling. And all of a sudden someone will look at me and they'll smile. It's like, just smile back. It's just, we feel like we're out there spreading light. And it's wonderful because I remember when I was in the New Age and I was deep in it. And the New Age makes you very arrogant, very proud of what you can do spiritually. You feel like the spiritual elite and the rest of the world are all ignoramuses, and that one day they'll see. And I used to think that I was channeling light from the earth and light coming from the universe, and that I was channeling light into the rest of the world, and I was the light. And anybody I would look at, the light coming from my eyes would heal them, would somehow change them. Like, my goodness. And it's funny because I remember reading the New Testament, and I remember in a lot of it, I take with a grain of salt. You know, I read it, to me, it's like the Talmud. They could have very good stories in there where it points to the Torah. I'll say, yes, that sounds reasonable. Where it doesn't, I say, maybe they changed it. Just like the rabbis have changed many of the things in the Torah that's in the Talmud are changed from the Torah. But I remember thinking when John said, I think it was, I don't know if it was John. He said, I am not the light. He is the light. Suddenly, I cannot tell you, I felt such a sense of relief, like a burden was lifted off my shoulders. And every once in a while that happens. All of a sudden I realize I don't have to take that on. That's God's job. Let me do what I can do. The rest is up to him. I think we have a Messiah complex sometimes. We think we're going to be able to change the world. All we can do is change ourselves. And in changing ourselves, somehow things change around us. It's absolutely amazing.
Very true.
Very true.
Any words of wisdom, Jerry?
Well, there's so many. It's a lot of deep discussion that we came up with, Miriam, that you were talking about, and it's the divorce rate is very high today, and the reason is that couples, they can get along for 10 years, let's say, and then they can have an argument for 10 minutes, and they forgot about the 10 years where they want to love them, and then they want to smash them out. And the thing is that they don't realize that the good years are there, and sometimes our natures get away from us our evil natures. This is the same whole thing with Joseph and it's the same thing. You don't realize it's we have a demon that enters your body. Your evil nature takes over, and what you've been saying, Miriam and Peggy, what you've been saying is that is not to let that evil nature take over our bodies, and for that moment, not to answer someone back in the heat of the discussion. There's a thing when a person is mourning at that time, not to comfort them is impossible at that height of their mourning. So you have to understand. We understand. We have differences of emotions, and sometimes, hopefully, those evil emotions will just pass. And I think you mentioned something previously, Peg. You just have to let it pass sometimes, and not to confront it. You're just going to wind it up and make it worse. And similar to this year, well, Joseph was doing that, and this poem is just to walk away from confrontation and evil. But you have to learn that and be strong enough. And I was once thinking about love and compassion. And love is one thing, to love someone, and compassion is understanding that those evil hot springs can erupt in people sometimes, and you have to let it pass. I'll wait for a comment from you guys.
Well, I made just a few little notes because our whole society has changed today. Everything is instant. We want instant coffee. We want instant breakfast. If we wait too long in a restaurant, we get upset. We want things to happen fast. Everything has to happen fast. Many years ago, there were no, you had no cell phones. You couldn't, you had to pull over and use a payphone, or even before the payphone, you had the line in your house. You wanted to send a message, you had to write a letter. Everything has changed, but we're living in a society that the Western society, in my understanding, is has a very different root than Hebrew understanding. Hebrews and the Western way of thinking is very different. Although today it's such a mix, like everything is all mixed up, but the whole idea of love and commitment has been lost. When we stand under the chuppah and we make a commitment before God, that when we say, let no man pull asunder what God has brought together. Unfortunately, many of the relationships that have come together are not come together by God. Many people marry for the wrong reasons. Many people marry for convenience. They marry to get out of the house. They marry for money. Very few people today are marrying because this is their soulmate or their life mate. They get married with the proviso, well, if I'm not happy, I can get out of it. It's like everything else, I can get out of it. They have no understanding of what it means to be loyal, to make a commitment, because the feeling of love, the way we see it as Hollywood love, can disappear very fast when you after you have an argument, as you say, and then you forget why you married that person in the meantime. But it's a process. If you marry the wrong person, little by little, the things that you thought you loved about them, like the lies that opposites attract, opposites may attract, but they won't get along well in a marriage. You have to have compatibility. You have to have things in common. You have to have morals in common. You have to have things that will hold you together in the long run. And then once you make a decision and you say, I am going to love and honor this person and be committed to this person and be faithful to this person, in that moment when you get upset with them, you can get upset, but then you remember, I made a commitment and I'm going to hold to that. That's a decision, and that's an act of the will, because feelings will deceive us. We cannot rely on our feelings in that moment. We have to rely on the commitment that we made. In Hebrew, the word ahava, loyalty, is loyalty. It's not Hollywood love. It's very different. So we're living in a world, a Western world, where all these things are in play. Oh, everybody wants this romantic love. And, we go out they don't bother getting married. 5 years, the romantic love is gone. They'll go, it's like an addiction to this romance. But it has nothing to do with building a life together with another person and building a family. We've lost that in this society, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. That's how I see it. They want a quick fix.
Yeah.
Miriam, you have anything else to add?
No, I don't think so.
Like, one of the things I would love to do, and hopefully one day maybe God will open that door, is for me to be able to counsel young people, a young couple who are getting ready to get married. My rabbi used to do that. He was very gifted at that. And people would come to him and he would tell them, he would have them do a 6-month program with him. And there was very little that they didn't talk about. And sometimes he would say to them, the two of you it's not a good match. You're good people, but you're not meant to be together. And they would get so upset at him. They would leave and they would get married somewhere else. And then they would come back to him afterwards, or one would, and they would cry, why didn't we listen to you? Because premarital counseling is so important. And we're not getting that. It's not, and the scripture was different. The scriptures, if you look at how they were matched, like many of these matches were made by God. You could see that, even when the servant of Abram was sent to bring Isaac a wife, you saw how he brought Rebecca to Isaac. But it didn't mean that they had an easy time. Relationships are very difficult. So that's why if you're going to live long time with someone, you need to have somebody who you have a lot in common with. And then it's a good match. And make that commitment to, no matter what, we are going to work it out. Today, everything's made out of plastic, even our cars, the built-in, what do they call it? Built-in obsolescence. And, we're throwing away we're throwing away our babies. How many babies are being aborted for reasons? It's going to be inconvenient for us to have a baby. So let's kill them. So that's the society we're living in. And that's the gods that we have allowed to take over our lives.
So, I was in a discussion last week with some people, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to join or not, but I did join at the end, because this discussion, everyone speaks at any time, and I don't like to push in and interrupt, So I was just wondering at the end if I should put in my 2 cents or not, And then I told myself, like even here, I thought it's an obligation to put in your 2 cents for a number of reasons. One is to show that you're participating, that you're listening. The other thing is to, if you have something worthwhile that the other people could benefit, you have an obligation to share your knowledge. And the stickling point is that how much do you share and how do you share it? Do you share it from the point of view that are you sharing it with humility? Are you sharing it with the point of view, well, I have this point of view, I'm going to tell you what you said and you said and you said, but this is what I think.
Right.
And even that, when you're saying this is what I think, you're displaying some pride, and that you have to balance. Like even what I'm saying now, uh, just what the guy said, Rudyard Kipling, you don't want to be too smart. So it's a balancing act. The whole thing is a balancing act.
Exactly.
And people can get along with different people. Like God willing, your partner will be your bashert, whatever they say, your soulmate. But I don't want to say but. Let's say there are many people that beside that you could get along with. It's
Yes.
and to repeat just what you said, Peggy, you're sometimes you could be getting along with someone, and you could have a 2-minute argument. Everything goes out the window if you let the heat take over your the evil nature, take over your good nature. So you have an argument, you forget everything that happened. It's
And there again comes the wisdom of Solomon. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. In other words, deal with it before you go to sleep. Work it out. You have to have a line of communication. And even when it's hard, you have to really try, to work on that communication. Communication is the gift that we've been given. The animals don't have it. We do. And we have.
Okay.
What about what?
That? What about you have to have a line, not let some, what about a line of letting the anger pass? And they say this in so many places, like do not approach a man in his deep sorrow or deep this. We have to let the healing process take over a little bit before you can approach someone. If someone is at the fit of their anger and you just can't get through, it's impossible. If someone is in the deepest sorrow, it's not the time. Right. So I'm not sure what it is, but there is a time that the adaptive process. You had this year, Hans Selye, this year stress guy.
I remember him.
Well, I don't, but anyhow. So no, I don't, because I only know the name, So you have a certain amount of stress. After a while, if you're taking that stress, your body will adapt. So if you have a shock, and it's a shock that you can handle, the first day or two or instance, it's like impossible. But if you stay with it, you'll find you could handle it, and you could adapt to it. So we have to let people adapt to their fits of anxiety. And we're all a little anxious today. Like who's not? You guys, thank God, people who walk every day. Well, they're blessed because they have taken to walk, and they're walking away 90% of their anxiety.
It helps a lot.
Yeah, that's a fantastic relief.
Yeah,
walking and talking to dogs.
Yeah,
not kissing the dogs,
it's not
Miriam, but not kissing the dogs. I'm not sure if you kiss the dogs.
Not kissing the dogs.
Well,
yeah, I think she's kissed a couple of dogs.
I'll kiss their heads sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just. But anyhow, look, anyhow, if you
but
survive,
it's a combination of things. We are holistic beings. We are body, mind, soul, and spirit, and we have to feed all areas. Miriam and I are very aware of good foods, of things that are right for us, things that we should eat. If I eat too many things if I eat things I'm allergic to, I will have a reaction. If I eat too much sugar, I will have a reaction. If I hurt somebody and don't deal with it, that's on the spiritual level. That's, there are emotional things that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the physical life around us. It's a constant balancing. It's a balancing act, this life of ours.
So people, they do yoga and meditate every day, and even twice a day. And,
I used to do that. Yeah.
So what we have to start up, Miriam, we have to start up a daily routine here, a daily session, a daily talk session. and get people, more people in to help more people, Peggy. And so you can call it a daily psychological de-stressing session. And here's the clincher. The clincher is you could mention it on that, and then you could bring in the Torah to help as well. So you can help in all respects.
Okay.
So that's a
Sounds
good
good.
time every day, 2:15 to 2:45 every day. I'm only whatever. Anyhow, so we have a daily, but you guys have it because you have your walk every day, so it's fantastic.
Yeah, no, it is good. Well, you know what? We'll let God lead it. I know that I've never known in my life, I've never looked for things. They've always suddenly appeared, and everything is a process. It's it's not the destination, it's the journey that we need to enjoy.
Right.
Yeah.
The journey is the journey is the one of the more important things about everything. The destination is looking forward to things is a very, very big plus in your life.
Exactly.
You need something to look forward to.
Exactly.
Like everything things look sometimes greater than what they seem when you actually get there. But looking forward is exactly what you said. I'm repeating myself. Don't worry. The journey is yes. The journey is,
and that's what the Torah. That's what the Torah is all about. Is journeys of various people in our community, in our history, and their journeys are to help us in our journey, which is beautiful. Yes, Miriam, what were you going to
I
say?
would say also, the journey doesn't only mean there's a destination. It means the actual journey becomes a joyous experience.
Exactly.
I'm not saying it always is, but sometimes it is, and that's the idea of the eternal now, or the idea of the present is the only real. There's no time, and I'm getting philosophical, but past, present, and future are nice for us, but the real time is just the eternal now. So to learn to be more in the present. So I'm not saying it's easy. I don't find it easy, but that's really what living life daily is about.
And when it's knowing that there is a God and He gives us a sense of eternity, a sense of His shalom. That sense of shalom is just complete and utter peace, no stress, no anxiety, just a full knowledge that He exists, and that once we leave these bodies, there is an eternity that our soul moves on to. What that looks like, I don't know, but we know we can look forward to that, and that helps us to live in the eternal now, because that's where we are.
Exactly.
I like to, Peggy, I like to live in the now, right now, because this is what we have, or what we think we have. And I think it's, they say like 1 hour of bliss in the afterlife, or 1 hour over here, but you can do 1 hour in this life, you can't do in the afterlife. What you can do 1 hour in the afterlife. But in the meantime, but it says 1 hour of bliss in the afterlife is better than this whole life. And they say 1 hour here of Torah and mitzvahs you cannot do in the afterlife. So each one has its benefits. So my point is to try to make what we have now, this life, in the afterlife, that's in the afterlife. It's but a lot of people say you do a mitzvah, you have a good thing now and good in the afterlife. Well, I like to emphasize the good now, and God wants us to have the good now. That's why He put us here, not to be thinking of the afterlife. We could be thinking about it, but the doing is now, to do now.
Exactly.
The present. This is what we have.
That's what we have. And we've been placed within our circle of influence, within our families, within the people around us, the home that we live in. are we living in balance with all those things around us? Or are we always in stress about everything that's around us? That's our job. That's what we need to work on. That's what makes this life worthwhile. When we get up in the morning, are we saying, thank you, God, what do you have for me today? Let's see. Get up, you make your bed, you have your breakfast, you enjoy your life. There'll be moments that are sheer struggle, moments when you're upset with someone, someone's upset with you, some tragedy happens, but there's always hope. And that's the whole idea of living Torah.
So I think another thing, I just got a little sparkle, that to realize, just the word you just mentioned, that a struggle and or may come, and we have to, if we realize the struggle is there, and it's for us to challenge that struggle and to overcome it, so we will be more accepting of the struggle, and it will therefore, or of the challenge, and therefore it will be automatically lighter, because it's something. If we were put here and everything was easy, was no reason for us to be put here. We could have been made like just angels.
Exactly.
No purpose for what we're supposed to do.
Exactly.
And this is what we're doing tonight. And the reading is also very important. But this, as a separate part, is important. People expressing themselves and talking things out. I think that's fantastic. And you guys, I'm not like being envious of you guys, but it's fantastic. You can walk and talk and meet people and smile and pet the dogs. Don't kiss them. Pet the dogs.
You could do the same thing in Laval.
Well, I was always a little bit gun shy of playing with dogs and stuff like that. But
you don't have to copy us. You do your own thing. But the idea is to be in relationship with people, and not to be isolated.
Yeah, before the COVID, I was in very, very big relationship.
Yeah.
We're dancing a couple of times a week, square dancing, and you're square dancing, you're maneuvering with 10, 20, 30 people all the time. I think that's a fantastic thing. So that's one of the losses of that COVID.
Well, you can begin again. You can begin again. I'm sure there are still groups that do that. Anyway, I think we've talked enough for today, because when it gets too long, people will lose attention span. Most people have only attention span for 45 minutes, to an hour, so that I'd like to keep it. But I like this format. I don't know what we'll do each week, but I like how we've started this new year. Well, the pagan new year, I call it, because our new year is in Pesach. I want to be true to Torah, although it's fun to watch. As Yeshua said, we're in the world, we're not of it, but we need to be in it. We need to live in it, and we need to be a light in it. So thank you, Jerry, for your input. Miriam, it's always a pleasure. Looks like it's freezing rain, so I'm not sure how much walking we'll be doing tomorrow. But
I just like to make a suggestion, and sometimes I mention things because I won't say anything if I keep totally quiet, so I have to interrupt sometimes. Excuse me, forgive me.
That's okay.
But I have an idea. If you do part of this format, you can try to do both. Whatever you decide, of course. You're the leader here.
Yes.
We could have the parsha, and you could have a 10-20 minute review summary of the parsha.
Right. Instead of reading the whole thing.
You could read certain pertinent chapters,
right,
and review it, like certain factors you want to say. Like you could say this says this, and here by this verse says this, and then you go on. It could be a shortened version plus the discussion, so we could have both. Just a suggestion.
Yes. Well, my idea originally was, unless we read what it says, it's too easy to fall into what other people say about it. But we finished the book of Genesis, a book of Bereshit. We're now going to start the book of Exodus. And that to me is one of the most powerful stories, powerful books. So we'll take a look at how we continue, going with it. This is a good format, but we'll be fluid, and we'll see how we're led.
Whatever you decide, the reading is really, really good, as you said. But but if you don't do the reading, maybe you should do a summary and read certain passages to point. Anyway, whatever you decide.
We'll take a look and see how that goes.
It's all good. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you, Jerry. It was a delight. Miriam, it's always a delight to see you. And God willing, you will have the rest of a good week. At Wednesday night, we can say Shabbat Shalom. And I encourage anybody who is listening in, please just read the Torah, read the words. That's
the other thing. Excuse me I'll forget if I don't. You could have the people suggestion. You could have them do a quick read of the parsha before the night. Like you have your little. I think you do have a little review on each coming in. So you could suggest everybody a day before, if they have the time or whatever, to read the parsha, because you're going to have a little review of it.
Right, which I hope people do for before Shabbat, because when you listen to a Shabbat message, it certainly helps after to read. It's difficult to read the words, because I remember how hard it was for me to try to read before I had an epiphany. I had a real awakening, and when you have a sense of God, then His Word just becomes alive. Anyway, thank you again.
Thank you.
Yes, Jerry. He does let me say goodbye.
Up with these ideas.
That's okay.
The other thing is, Peggy.
Yes.
You have you keep all these here at Torah 101s. You have them somewhere, right?
Yes, I do.
But the other thing is that you could send these out a couple of days before from the parsha from last year previously, and people could review that as well if they have the inclination.
That's a good idea. We haven't done a year yet, so once we do, that's a very good idea. All right, I like ideas, and you're always coming up with good ones. All right, so I wish you all the best, and we'll see you again, God willing. Next week.
I must comment. You see, I don't stop. I must comment, Miriam. Thank God. You've inspired me. I sense your calmness tonight. I sense your calmness and your happiness, and that I can feel your goodness coming through tonight, really. and I can see it more with the light.
And
with the literal light.
With the literal light. And that's why we sing. And one of the things I think in one of our prayers, there is healing in His wings, that He really is a healer.
Yeah.
And for those who lose hope, don't lose hope, because God can heal and change lives, because He did it with my life. He did it with Miriam's life. And that's what we want to spread,
right.
To the world.
One person at a just in all our
one person at a time.
Individual lives.
Exactly. So, Laila Tov, good night, and I'll see you
Thank
soon.
you, Peggy.
You're welcome.
Bye, Jerry. Have a good week.
You too. Bye.